fascinating realization on this walk. The contemplation was triggered by standing at a stoplight. And we're going for a walk. It's early in the morning. There's not a lot of traffic right now. But we were at the light, and it was a don't walk sign. And there was another person across the street. And that person went ahead and walked across the street, even though the don't walk sign was on. And it really struck us in that moment, like, whoa, what's going on? It's the no walk sign. And of course, glancing at the lanes, traffic lanes, there was no cars. Totally safe to walk across the street. And like we do, we started to examine the psychology of this. What is in the psychology of the person who walks across the street on the don't walk sign? And what is the psychology of the person, as in ourselves, we as in self, to not walk across the street with the do not walk sign, even though it's totally safe to do so? And in that moment, we can see it with our own eyes, sense it with our own body, but yet we remain obedient to the signal, the traffic signal. Why is that? Isn't that fascinating? Now, we can only speak to our own psychology as the person who does not break the traffic laws in that moment. And why? Usually we start to trace back the programming that's been very helpful for us to do in a lot of self-awareness practice. Let's take a deep breath and allow ourselves to journey back through our life and see where perhaps this programming began. And the first thing that comes up was, well, good girl. Be a good girl. Aren't you a good girl? And you know what? As a little one, it felt good to be referred to and seen and looked at as good. On the duality side of that experience, it did not feel good and actually was painful and traumatic at times to be seen as bad. Bad girl. Bad. You didn't follow the rules. To which we stand here and now ask ourselves, whose rules? And what if we began to operate from another lens? We begin to operate and reprogram that the rules or the laws that we actually follow are universal ones. And that the rules and the laws of men, and we specifically use this word, men, in reference to the white supremacist male that make up laws to suppress others, a majority of the current government, and that we begin to explore, begin to experiment, existing and treading on this earth, and being a willing participant of community, of humanity, of society, but only within the rules and the laws that are not suppressive, that are in alignment with unity consciousness. Truly a very powerful guide, aligning an existence to being in the frequency of unity consciousness. If more folks signed up for that, we would change this world. There's a beautiful being that we know, Sister Judy. Sister Judy has devoted her life for the past almost 30 years to creating communal housing for women and children. She operates these homes called Alexandria House, and we have visited her many times there. They operate off of volunteers and everyone giving and receiving. That's their foundation. And it is quite the operation to witness. And we absolutely fell in love with Sister Judy when one of the staff member was explaining the origin of the story. And that was that Judy is a nun. And that she was a part of a group of nuns who decided that they no longer wanted to wear the habit. It didn't change their devotion. It didn't change their connection to their spirituality. didn't change the fact that they would devote themselves to the community, to being a representation of a loving presence, that anyone in need could come there and they would receive in some way. Didn't change that about these nuns. They wanted to just be free in doing that and not have to wear a certain garment that covers them up. And so they left the church because that request was denied. And they just continued what they felt called to do out in the world. And when this story was shared with us, we're like, oh, rebel nuns. And a rebel is part of a rebellion. And what's dropping in is to take this moment and dedicate to being a rebel, to start to dismantle and reprogram any narratives that lead to the compliance of any rules or laws that are suppressive in some way. To be a part of a community and a society, but also to be sovereign. Thank you so much for joining us in this contemplation. This is Deep Dose, and we are Eden.